Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video, and the third and probably final video in this series. This is clearing EX2 Beatdown Battle to get the final, well, not final, but the last dupe of Gazel you can get out of these fights. The previous 2 days, I've released videos with bunches of teams that can clear this stage pretty efficiently. And so today is just a continuation of that. More teams, more blue teams, and then some orange teams mixed in, because you can use those too, and they do work. They do require a bit of RNG, but they do work. But the disclaimer that I put in all 3 of these videos now is that it's not a perfect team building video. I have every unit, but I can't build a team for every single player out there. So if the first 2 videos didn't work for you, hopefully this video does. Hopefully it gives you some ideas on what you should be looking for when team building and seeing how different teams operate in this fight. But you got to use your head and got to use what's available to you in your own personal boxes of characters. So just use this as a guide. If this doesn't work out for you, you can ask questions in the comments or in my Discord and people will help you out. But I can't make a video for everybody. So please, this is purely informational, just showing off some teams that can do it. Let's go ahead and get started. Did you know that there's another space team that is effective against wind? The Primal Demon team, the pre-2.5 anniversary team. So it came out 5 months after the Visions of Coleus team, has a strong single target space nuker in Blanc. It's the first team to introduce the I can use skills an unlimited number of times kind of gimmick, and with this team it's definitely built for that. So we've got Violet, we've got Misery as our orange converter, we've got Diablo as our green converter, physical buff, guaranteed pierce for everybody. Space Jean, we just got done nuking with her, 7.5 million damage, we know what she can do, but now she's going to be in a dedicated support role to help Blanc do damage. Earth Jean has the reset and 300 extra skill points on turn 8, and then the element resistance down and all that. And then Blanc herself has the 0 cost skills that you need to use a butt ton of times. It's just that we don't have a reset on this team until we use Jean on turn 8. So we're not going to get as many stacks as we would with Divine General Raphael, but she's still a single target space nuker who's giving herself a lot of personal buff. And on this team, it's going to work really well. We're not even bringing Rainbow Orbs here, but we're going to use each of her skills because they cost nothing right now. And we'll send these greens, and it's going to run pretty much the same way that Visions of Coleus did in the last clip. It's just that this team, I think, is a bit harder to use because of the orb changes just being one color each. So if you get like 1 green and 1 orange, yeah, too bad. You got to use 2 skills for that. And those skills could cost like 100 points at one point. At some point in the fight, and it's just kind of unfortunate. So, gotta make sure we have the points. Not having rainbows really does kind of hurt us and not supercharging our gauges, not giving us a lot of protection or skill points or alt. But, we can full change of orbs, and eventually we'll have the stockpile of points necessary to start using a few different stacks of Blanc to get to a point we're gonna do a lot of single target damage. Even though she's physical, and she's not super weak point because they want us to use a magic team in this fight, yeah, Blanc doesn't really give a shit. We're just going to overpower anyways. So, Violet is stacking 12% attack and allowing us to use skills multiple times in a turn. Not that we're really taking advantage of that right now, because we just don't have the skill points to use anything multiple times in a turn. We can barely get over 100 right now. So alt swap, orb change, boom, boom. We have a couple stacks of Violet now. Let's use a stack of Blanc. Her first skill is stacking Pierce Power and Alt damage. It's a lot more impactful to her actual total damage output than her second skill, which is just stacking attack and stacking extra Alt gauge on every orb, which will help us get alts faster eventually, but not here. So like this hand, this is not great because we don't have enough points to use 2 converge to handle 2 orbs each. We don't have it. So we're just gonna send these 2 oranges, and then next turn, hopefully, we can convert. But we just get 2 more oranges back to back. So, kind of unfortunate right there. We're going to bring Diablo in for Jean. Okay, cool. We have a blue now incoming, so we can use both orb changes now. So now we can get him out of here. We'll use a stack on him as well because, you know, he's an AoE nuker. He's not going to do the most damage, but he'll certainly put up numbers because he's going to get full buff just like everyone else is. And now we can send this 221 points coming in. Yeah, sure, fine, whatever. And it's turn 8. And we barely have a normal ult for Blanc. Barely. Like, we just got here now. But we don't have enough points to actually nuke, because we need to use the 55 and the 80-point skill with Jean. We need to use the 80-point skill with Diablo. We need to use 2 80-point skills with the other Jean, but one of them gives us 300 points after turn 8, which is, it is now after turn 8. So, we're going to have to forego some buffs here. So we're not going to get the EX alt buff because we don't even have an EX alt to begin with, so there'll be no point in using it. So now we'll use Jean to give us 300 points and reset everything back down. We can then use the Diablo buff, the other Jean buff, which is Element Down and Weakness Strike. And then we can use Violet to allow us to use a number of skills over and over again, which we'll use the Orb Change with Diablo just in case, and then we just start using Blanc skills over and over and over again until we run out of points, which didn't take very long. And now we're going to ult with this single target non-EX ult. Diablo does 545, and Blanc does, we're going to watch it because she's hot. She does more than 545, and it's enough to kill. And we didn't even have an EX ult. Like, that was not what I would consider a good run. 2.7 million. Yeah, that was not a good run. We were missing one of the buffs and an EX ult for Blanc, and it's still more than enough to kill. So there we go. Visions of Coleus Space Team can do it. Primal Demon Space Team can do it. Let's watch something else that's blue focused that can do it. Alright, the final team for this video is the Ogre's Pride team. Another blue stacking team. Not space focused though, fire focused, but we know that this team can already do a butt ton of damage. Like, Momiji in her beatdown battle was doing 34 million, so type neutral, we're still going to be just fine. We don't have any rainbow orbs, though, to try and rush the ults and supercharge the gauges, so, and we can't use Elmesia's Enamor effect because her skill is sealed. So we're going to rely just on pure blue orbs and RNG and hopefully be able to get a few ults. We've got Soe for his magic attack buff, his attack buff for magic allies, and then the synergy power, which can vary between 50 and 100%. Violet is here for orb changing as well as Soe, and her magic buff, Elmesia for the ult damage and ult resistance down, Momiji as our AoE nuking character, and then big time buffs, and then Shuna is technically the single target character that you would nuke with, but we're only going to use her for ult swapping. So we're going to nuke with Momiji here, because she's AoE and she's funny. So let's go ahead and jump in. Alright, starting out, I mean, it's the same as all the other blue teams. We don't have an orb changer to handle it, so we're just going to send 4 greens, call it good, and then, like I said, we're just going to bank on orb changing. There will be a few dead turns because we just don't have a lot of points, so I think turn 2 is also kind of dead. We just need to get activated Benimaru so we can get extra skill points on blue orbs so we can actually make something out of it. So these 2 greens, yep, alright, that gets us gauge. That gives us a good Violet hand right there, and we only need to use 1 orb change here, so that's excellent. We can do a stack of Benimaru. Benimaru is stacking ult damage by 10% every single time, and then when you hit turn 8, specifically turn 8, he will start giving you 100% pierce power for that turn. So this team really wants to nuke on turn 8 or beyond to maximize that power, because Momiji is giving pierce rate for everybody, buffing her own fire attack, and then guaranteed synergy and synergy resistance down, which pairs very well with Soe, who's giving us synergy power. So here, good orb change with him. He can convert any 2 orbs to blues. It doesn't matter what they are as long as it's 2 orbs. So between him and Violet, we can pretty much orb change about anything. So that's why they work really well together. That's why I brought Violet. Technically, the Shuna does give a magic buff as well, but it's only to herself. She's quite greedy. She gives a weakness strike to everybody, but we don't need weakness strike. We don't need Weakness Strike because we are not type advantage, so it does literally nothing for you. So that's why I'm not really a big fan of using Shuna here. We do have her ult, which is fine, but again, I'm trying to ult with Momiji because she's funny. And even though she's an AoE, she's going to do plenty of damage here. We just have to get to turn 8 to really see the power and benefit of that. So Shuna's role is pretty much just an ult swapper. Like, I just want her to do that. And if you don't have her, you could bring Visions of Coleus Blanc, or free-to-play Rieger, or free-to-play Gabta from the Prosper or Tempest Elite metas, respectively, and they can work just fine. We're really not using Shuna's buff at all. We're just using her ult swap. And yeah, turn 7, so we're almost to turn 8, where we can start using the big-time nuking power. And that's about it. So this is the last part of, or the last video of part 2 of the EX2 Beatdown Battle guides. Hopefully, between this and the first video, you were able to build something reasonable to clear this fight. I think we've proven that you can use almost anything to do it, as long as you've got an okay team and it makes sense and you have, you know, some decent buffs available to you. We've shown burst teams that can do it. We've shown stacking teams we can do it. We've shown stacking teams that have nerfed blue orbs that can do it. And then there's a whole butt ton of green teams, obviously. So hopefully you found something intriguing here. Now we're on turn 9. We have the EX ult with Momiji, so let's use everyone's buff. Are we gonna? No. Take Shun. Oh, we do. Oh, okay, we use Shuna's buff. That was a mistake. Aren't we ulting with Momiji? Did I mess up? Are we? I think we're ulting with Momiji, but we didn't give her a magic buff. Well, there goes my thing out the door. Whatever. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. 1, 2. Yeah, we ult with Momiji. Why didn't I use the violet buff? We nerfed Momiji's damage, and she still does 3.2 million. So I mean, does it actually matter? No. But hey, we're trying to set a precedent here. But there you go. There's, what, like 7 teams or something in this video that you can use to clear EX2. Hopefully, again, you learned something, but that's it for me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later. Starting video 3 off with an absolute banger. The Prosper team, surprisingly, can do this, with room to spare, actually. I was quite shocked. Octagram Lumi, permanent ult damage, permanent AoE damage for Almizia and Lumi. Rieger, a free-to-play character, orb change, and ult swap. Rimuru is the single target DPS, gives himself a magic buff, guaranteed crits for earth and fire, and then lowers crit resistance based on remaining HP, which we can't use Lumi or Almizia's HP skills because they're body and spirit and they're sealed, but we can use Octagram Lumi's ult buff, and it does have a heal attached to it, but it is not strictly a body and spirit skill, so we can use it. So we can keep Rimuru topped up to make sure that his crit resistance is at maximum capacity. And if we nuke on turn 8, when we kind of have to, because that's when the second part of his skill activates. So this is a turn 8 team. But the entire time, we're just going to use Lumi's orb change, like over and over and over again. And this is where the extra 150 skill points really makes a difference on this team. I don't know if this team would have been able to do it if we didn't have 150 points, because it just simply would become too difficult to try and convert every single goddamn turn and try and get everything going. So the extra 50 points is a welcome addition. But Lumi, you know, she's the Fire Lumi, is only here to orb change since we can't use her other skill. That's her only value. And then Almizia, we can't use her HP buff and the Enamor effect. So she's here for damage support. So if you want to bring someone else to do damage, or help Rimuru do extra damage, like be my guess, you can bring Visions of Coleus Violet if you want. That'll work. And then the final character? Octagram Lumi? Yeah, no, Rieger, Lumi, Almizia, Rimuru. Alright, we talked about everybody. Yeah, turn 8 is when you're going to nuke. Crit resistance will leave. If you try and nuke early, you're not going to have access to the second half of Rimuru's skill, where he gives you 150 skill points, which allows you to use his other 80-point skill and Almizia's 80-point skill, and now have a little bit left over to use maybe the last stack of Octagram Lumi to keep you healed up. And that's, I think, what we're going to do in this run. So you have to wait till turn 8. And by then, Milim's natural crit resistance will be gone. So normally, if you were to nuke before then, your crit resistance debuff would kind of negate Milim's, and you'd be doing just normal crit damage, which is a 1.3 times multiplier. But if you wait for Milim's crit resistance to go, then you're going to actually lower Milim like 100% down into the red, which means your crit will hit really hard, which is what we're looking for. We're looking for Rimuru to do massive single target damage to take Milim out. And now we have his EX ult, which is great. So we just need to get more points and make sure that we can actually nuke on turn 8. So here, we're going to orb change, we're going to bring in Rieger, we're going to alt swap away, and this should, with Maribel giving us 300% extra skill points on blues, get us to cap, and we can use one final AoE buff. And it does. Alright, so there's 150 points, turn 8 is coming, and the super guard from Maribel has been keeping us at pretty good HP levels, and whatever we've taken, we can just heal with Lumi. So like this little bit of damage would negatively impact Rimuru's crit debuff, but because we have 150 points now, we can use Lumi's last alt buff and heal him back up to full, which means that when we use his actual buff, it'll be full power. So magic attack 100, turn 8 you get 150 points back. That allows us to use both his crit resistance down and guaranteed crits, and then Almesia's buff. We can bring Rieger into orb change because we got points left over. And then we'll use Maribel in this very low event that we don't kill. But Almesia 337 and Rimuru 1.5 million. So he would have one-shot even from full HP. And we did synergy there, though. So if we didn't synergy, maybe cut his damage down to like 1.2, which still would have gotten... It almost would have one-shot her at full HP. But we also had Almesia's ult taking 300k off that, so he would have still one-shot even without that natural 2% synergy proccing. But there's the stupid Prosper team. Actually came in clutch today. Alright, another half anniversary team. This was the 1.5 anniversary Warriors Mind EX team. And it's another blue team. And you know what? It also works fine. Velzard she's very basic. She's stacking 12% attack on these guys, and that's it. So she's quite old. The free-to-play Xion is our orange to blue orb changer. Also stacks very small amounts of crit damage. We don't use it that much. Violet is orb changing her own orbs and giving us a massive buff for crit damage and alt resistance down. Violet does have a skill fusion available, but in this video she is not skill fused. I'm going to do her own video for that. Octagram Lumi also, not Octagram, but Warriors Mind Lumi, also not skill fused. So she's giving physical buff and crit resistance down on turn 8, and then her gimmick skill allows us to use an extra protection gauge when we have conditions met. Guy, primary orb changer as well, plus alt, plus guaranteed crits. He is not skill fused, so he's giving the gauge increase, not crit resistance down. And then Rimuru is a single alt swapper, but more importantly able to alt rush everyone on this team besides Xion. So blues, obviously because we don't have rainbow orbs, don't give us a lot of alt gauge, but I want EX alts for Guy, so we're going to use Rimuru to just give Guy a lot of alt gauge very quickly, around turn 7, so we're ready to nuke on turn 8. This team isn't as powerful as the new teams, because obviously this is half a game ago, essentially. Right? This is the 1.5 team. We're now on the 3rd anniversary. This was half its lifespan ago, and the fact that it can still do it, I think is impressive. Did it do 1 million damage when it first came out? Probably, yeah, when it was fully complete, but it was kind of pushing it. This was only a, let's see, Fount of Wisdom, Wielder of Magic, not Wielder of Magic, World of Fantasy. This was the 3rd ever EX team, so it's really old. And now we're in the second part of our second EX Unbound, so we're a whole new rarity or something. So we've totally eclipsed this team in terms of viability. But if we've proven in the first couple videos that really old teams, like old green teams that are not even EX focused, can do it, this team certainly has the raw power to do so. You just need the full team. Xion, being the free-to-play, you can replace her for another character who also has orange converting. It's kind of important that you do have that, though. But here we're going to use the gimmick for Lumi, which if you have 70 points, you get a free protection gauge. So here, I only had one, but because I used Lumi's skill, I could use it twice, which gives us extra attack and gives us extra skill points on the blues, so it helps us build up faster and faster. And every time we use our protector, Rimuru's alt rush gets better. So it starts at like, what, 20% or something alt rush? And it can go up to 100% alt rush. So when you use the protector 8 times or 9 times or something, you can just give everyone a free meter of alt. So that's what we're really going for here. We want to use a lot of Velzard to really rush that. But I also don't want to do it too early because we only have a single alt swapper. And having alts here now would be kind of not great. But now it's turn 7. And we're looking at 80% alt gauge. So we're able to get Guy's EX alt because he has 2 orbs here. No Rimuru orbs, unfortunately. And there's nothing we can do about that. So we're going to be missing an EX alt for him. But we do have enough points to full nuke here. We've used, I think, 2 stacks of Xion's crit damage. It's not very big. Yeah, 2 stacks of it. Not super worried about it. So let's bring in... Alright, we're using 3 now. There we go. Still not... It's like 15% crit damage. It's not huge. Let's use Violet's huge debuff. Let's bring in Lumi for her buff. Now that's turn 8. It's even more impactful. We'll use Guy's buff, which is guaranteed crits, to activate all the crit damage and crit resistance that we put on. 1 final stack of Velzard. Guy's also giving 80% crit damage. And then we'll send Guy, and he does 872. And then Rimuru does 512, because his was not an EX alt. He would have done probably close to Guy's damage numbers if he had an EX. But there's the Warriors Mind 1.5 anniversary team clearing this one. And I mean, it worked. It was actually pretty easy, mainly because we had that alt rush. But let's move on. Alright, this is the final blue team, I think, that I'm going to show you. Fount of Wisdom, the original EX team. This was the very first team. So Diablo, Albus, Hinata, and Rimuru. Rimuru being type disadvantage, not great, but he's also AoE, so he's not meant to really do damage here. We've brought Wind Trainee to be another orb changer. We have 4 here now. Albus is changing greens, Rimuru is changing oranges, and then both Hinata and Trainee are doing special converts. And Trainee is alt rushing our highest attacking character, which at the time I didn't realize is actually Albus because she's 120. So she actually has higher attack than Hinata. I was trying to alt rush Hinata, but oh well, whatever. And then the hero for the rewind to give us some extra stacks and the guaranteed crits, which is pretty important. Diablo as a protector nowadays is absolutely awful. He's stacking by 30 points instead of 40 or 50 like other stacking blue protectors. He is lowering alt resistance by 15% every time, which is pretty big. Like we've found out through Elmesia, the Earth one, that 120 alt resistance down is a huge buff. And it's essentially, you have 100% alt damage, and you have the equivalent 100% alt resistance down. While they're doing different things, quote-unquote, they will buff the same percentage number. So having 200% alt resistance down is the same as having 200% alt damage up. So if you combine a lot of alt damage and a lot of alt resistance down, you're going to do a lot of damage, alongside the guaranteed pierce and the pierce resistance down that Albus is giving, alongside the personal buff from Hinata, which is, I think, 40% alt damage for herself, and then 60% attack for everybody that's on the team. And then Rimuru is giving the physical buff and physical resistance down. And even technically Trainee can buff Hinata a little bit with a 25% wind buff. I don't actually think that was active on the nuke turn, but yeah, it is an extra buff you could put on if you played your cards right. But the important thing about this team is that we have a butt ton of orb changers. And since Diablo does not stack nearly as fast as other protectors, it means that we have less points to pull from overall, which is why the rewind is really important, because I want to get extra stacks out of that, especially with blues being nerfed. So we've orb changed this full hand, and we activated the rewind, and now we're praying that we can convert next turn, and thankfully we can, because we can bring Trainee in for the hero, and we still have the Albus convert, which means that we get 2 guaranteed full hands of blues, plus the rewind. We've alt rushed with Trainee, and I didn't realize that it hit Albus, because I thought it would hit Hinata. Oh well. We're going to need the Albus ult anyways to do extra damage, because this being the very first EX team, its damage is quite mid compared to everything else. This was March of 2023, and it's now late October of 2024. That's a long time in a gacha game to be power crept out. So we need all of the extra damage we can get. The masked hero is skill fused, so if you use I think 300 points in a turn, you can get an extra 30% crit resistance down. I don't know if we actually have the ability to use 300 skill points before using the hero buff, but we can definitely use 200 points, because we've got the Albus buff, the Hinata buff, and Rimuru all costing 80 points. That's 240. So we can definitely get a little bit extra out of that. If the hero isn't skill fused, I don't think it's a huge deal. I still think you can get the job done. Your margin for error, though, is just a little bit lower. So on turn 7, we need to ensure that 1, we get the EX ult, and 2, we have enough points to actually use all of the buffs, which we need 295 points, and we are at 290. So turn 8 is just give me some points. We're going to bring everybody in. The wind buff is that on? It is not on Hinata, so we're missing that as well. So we could have done actually a little bit extra damage on the nuke if that was still active, but we needed the EX ult and we weren't really getting it. So need to bring the hero in so we can give Hinata the crit. Maybe take Albus in for Rimuru or somebody. Somebody's got to come in. That works too. Albus and Hinata are single targets. They're going to do a lot more damage than type disadvantage water AoE Rimuru is going to do. So giving both of them the crit buff is more important. So let's we don't even use the points before hero. So okay, no, it doesn't matter if the hero's skill fusion or not, because we didn't even do anything to get her skill fusion active. So crit buff, the normal 30% resistance down, and then we'll send everything with all the other buffs. 82k. Albus does 377, and Hinata does 829. So we are able to kill. It's a lot closer than a lot of the other blue teams, but it's a very, very old EX team, and that's why. But that covers the blue stacking teams. Let's move on to some fun orange teams now. Hey, let's actually not and say we did, because we need to make a 4th video. We have 4 more teams, and there's no way in hell I'm going to put 4 more teams in between these 3 videos. So we're just going to make a 4th video with the orange teams and actually one blue team that I forgot about. So this is part 3 of 4. Stay tuned for the last one in case these fucking 3 videos didn't help you out. I'm hard-pressed to see how they wouldn't, but hey, whatever. I don't know what you have in your own boxes. But as always, if you have other team suggestions with random units mashed together that you found that worked, please put it in the comments below. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.